Hello, welcome to EPG Pathshala. Today we shall be discussing reservoir sizing under the category water resource and management. The main objectives of the module shall be to find out the need for the reservoir, the inflow and demand characteristics, then various methodologies to do the reservoir sizing, and finally we shall end it up with the reliability measurement of the reservoirs. The main objectives of reservoir sizing that we are going to cover today shall be to store water which can be used for various purposes and to balance surplus and deficient period of flows. Now, before we start off, let us understand what exactly a reservoir is. A reservoir is storehouse of water in periods of excess water flow so that it can meet certain level of demands at times of inadequate water flow. This reservoir that we are talking of basically in layman's language stores extra water that you get during the lean period, say summers, and simultaneously this reservoir also helps in letting the inadequate water go over. So, this could exist naturally or could be constructed. Now, the reservoir sizing depends on various factors. One is variations in stream flow, second is size of the demand, third is target group, and fourth is efficiency of reservoir to meet the demand. Hereafter we will see how these various factors determine the reservoir sizing. When it comes to sizing, there can be multiple ways to address the problem, but the basics that can be compacted as to find out: one, the association between inflow characteristics, which has to be in terms of inflow sequence and demand sequence. By that I mean that when we are talking of inflow characteristics, it is important that we know what is the inflow sequence of the stream during this particular period. For example, in summers, the inflow shall be a little less. During monsoon, it would be quite high, and vice versa for demand. Demand shall be quite high during summers and shall be relatively less during, say, winter months. So, taking into consideration both of these factors, we need to understand how is it that we can relate inflow sequence and demand sequence with the reservoir sizing. Second thing, as we all can understand, is the reservoir capacity. Now, what do we understand? The higher the capacity that we require, the higher shall be the reservoir size. Third would be the controlled release. That means at what rate are you releasing the water, or what is the demand that is required for a reservoir. That shall also be taken into consideration. And then aspired performance, which caters to the population that you are catering to, which refers to the size of the community that you are catering to. So, these all factors shall decide what exactly shall the reservoir size be. Now, before we proceed further, it is important to understand that what exactly reservoir sizing problem involves. See, it involves the determination of the required storage capacity of the reservoir for given inflows and demands in a sequence of periods. Now, what do I mean by that? If I call Qt as flow and dt as demand which the reservoir has to meet, then if Qt is greater than equal to dt, it means the demand is always met, since we are saying that the inflow is always higher or equal to the demand that is being asked for. Thus, in case Qt is greater than equal to dt, then we mean that demand is always met. Thus, there is no need for the reservoir. However, if Qt is less than dt, then demand is not met in few seasons. What I mean here is that in case of summer seasons, again you are saying that the inflow of the water is much less as compared to what the demand shall be. Thus, we need to provide for reservoir during this particular stage. So, sometimes individually taking UT and DT do not help. So ideally speaking, the average of QT and DT are taken over all through the year for better analysis, aiding in time distribution. Through this, I mean that rather than taking individual values, we are taking summation of QT and summation of DT, say over period of years or for an year, and then checking out if your QT is greater than equal to DT or not. See, QT is the inflow and demand is DT. So if there are periods wherein more or less total, if you add up, of QT is catering to the total demand, then only there will be a requirement of reservoir. Otherwise, if there are times when the demand is always high and the inflow is not able to make up to that demand, there is no point of bringing in the reservoir. So here reservoir is helping only in time distribution. The only characteristic that we need to look for before we distribute or before we go into reservoir sizing is that summation of QT, that means inflow all through the months of the year, addition of that should be greater than DT, which is adding of the demand all through the months of the year. This should be a value which should be less as compared to QT, and then only the reservoir sizing or the reservoir making is feasible. Before we proceed further, let us understand the assumptions that we would require in the reservoir sizing determination or modeling. First would be sequence of flow and specific demands are known. That is, there is no uncertainty with either the inflow or the demand. Such values are called as deterministic values. So basically it is being said that neither do you have any confusion regarding the value of the inflow or the demand through the year or over period of years. It is always known what the inflow value is and what the demand value is, and thus such a sequence is known as deterministic. Second assumption that we have is the inflow sequence is assumed to repeat. So by that I mean that if the inflow sequence is an year, you get to see the same inflow even in a given period within the year, and it remains all the more same in all years. By this again, I would refer that in case I am talking of say June in 1996, then I am assuming that in preceding years 97, 98, 99, the inflow sequence shall remain more or less the same. Now for analysis of this whole data, it is important that an exhaustive data of over a large period is taken over, which could be say 10 years or 20 years, and then average flows are taken. Unless and until we take exhaustive data of 10 to 20 years, we might not be able to generalize, or we might not be able to understand what is the pattern of the demand as well as the inflow. So it is imperative that we take over data of at least 10 years and then take the average flows. Alternatively, construction of 1 year sequence using average flows of the month can be done, and then solution for the reservoir sizing obtained. Now how do I do that? What I am saying here is that you can take data of 10 years, individually pick up months, say you have picked up May, and then take average of all the May months of those 10-year data, find out the average, take that May value. Similarly, do it for another month, June. Take the values of the June inflow and demand all through these 10 or 20 years. Find out the average and take this average value as the June value. You could do it for all the months starting from January till December, and that way you would be able to get solution for the reservoir sizing. So basically you're taking average flows of individual months and then finding out the solution for reservoir sizing. So depending on the purpose required, the data could be divided in seasons, bi-yearly or specific months. Now if you do not want very exhaustive data, then you could divide it basically into seasons. So you could take 3 seasons or 4 seasons. Alternatively, if you just need, you're catering to a very small population and you just require to see how the variation occurs during, say, summer and winter months, you could alternatively take it bi-yearly or specific months, whichever, quarterly or 4-monthly, whichever you feel correct. That value, that data you could take, and then you could take an average of that data for 10 years. First method to determine size of reservoir is ripple diagram, which is ripple diagram method or mass curve method. Now in this is the most conventional and widely used method, which was developed by W. Ripple in 1883. This involves a mass inflow or cumulative inflow curve. As a plot, there is a plot of cumulative inflow at the y-axis versus time at the x-axis. And for demand curve, you take outflow curve as the y-axis versus time as the x-axis. In the next graph, you would be able to see the outflow as well as the demand curve. Now, how do you find out the mass? How do you use the mass curve method? First of all, you have to find out the cumulative inflow. The C and D, as I was discussing, gives you the empty reservoir deficit. Same way, H and J give you the reservoir deficit. Both of them have been obtained by drawing a tangent from the point the reservoir was full and was full again. So A, from A to B, and then F to G. For your convenience, I've made one more figure wherein demand and inflow curve have been combined together, and it is relatively easier to understand how a reservoir capacity can be understood. The dotted line shows the reservoir, how the reservoir is filling up. So as is visible, initially the reservoir becomes full, then again becomes empty, and then again starts refilling. In the red line, you would be able to see constant release of reservoir happening, which has been drawn tangent from the point, as I told you, wherein the reservoir is full. So the maximum dip is there. So maximum deficit, which is equal to the reservoir capacity, happens somewhere in the center, that you would be able to see between one reservoir full cycle and the other reservoir full cycle. This maximum deficit K is what we are interested in, as this is what will help us determine the storage capacity. So again, dotted line is the cumulative flow and red line represents constant release. Storage capacity is determined for maximum deficit, which has been shown by KD. The limitations of this particular method are that it considers outflow to be constant, which is not possible every time because demands are often seasonal. You are assuming that come what may, the outflow is more or less remaining constant, which might not happen, as the variation would occur from summer, winter, monsoon season. Second limitation is that the storage capacity is estimated by mass curve procedure increases with increasing length of record. Therefore, it is difficult to relate storage size to economic life. By that, it is meant that as you keep increasing the length of the record, that is, if initially you were trying to understand to develop a reservoir for 10 years and then you increase it up to 20 years, the amount of data that would be required would be different. The storage size would be different, because the rate at which the progress shall be happening shall be different. So this estimation through mass curve method, which doesn't take any of these parameters into consideration, shall be very, very difficult. The method does not take into account the net evaporation and storage losses. So if there is evaporation or the storage losses that are happening during due course of time, and if the percentage is very high, this probably is not the right method to determine the reservoir sizing. This can be suitable when small time period data is considered. For example, if you're just considering 5 to 7 years, then this probably would be a very good methodology to understand how a reservoir can be made. The second method that we are going to discuss shall be sequent peak analysis. In the sequent peak analysis, this particular method is used for time varying demands. That means in the last process of ripple diagram, since we were assuming that with time there is no variation in demand, in this particular case we understand that there would be time varying demands with season, so that can be taken into account for. Second is find the maximum cumulative deficit over adjacent sequence of deficit periods and determine the maximum of these cumulative deficits. So what happens in here is that you keep accumulating deficit over various sequences, and then you make a storage or you prepare the reservoir considering addition of all these deficits. So you make a reservoir which would cater to the highest deficit if obtained, and this reservoir shall be made according to that cumulative deficit which you have designed. As we proceed further to the slides, we would realize what exactly do we mean by this cumulative deficit. For time being, just understand cumulative deficit is something wherein deficits from earlier cycle are also being added over. The inflow sequence is assumed to repeat and the analysis is carried out over 2 cycles. That is, you are assuming that more or less the inflow sequence is repetitive over years. So the demand during the August next year shall be almost the same, and thus we try to do it over at least 2 cycles. 2 cycles are required in case the critical period lies towards the end of the inflow sequence. Now this is very important, especially when the maximum deficit that you are obtaining is at the end or nearing the end of the first cycle. So it is imperative that you carry it on to the second cycle and see where exactly is the deficit lying. Thus this model indicates the minimum storage required for maximum deficit. Sequent peak algorithm is given herewith. Now we are assuming that if T denotes the time period, KT is the requisite storage capacity of the reservoir at the end of the period T, and KT minus 1 is the requisite storage capacity of the reservoir at the end of the previous period T, then KT is equal to KT minus 1 plus RT minus QT. If this particular term is positive, then it shall be carried forward, otherwise the whole thing will become 0. What does this mean? Let us see. QT is the inflow we are talking of. So RT is the required release or demand in period T, which sometimes is referred as DT also. When your DT is less than QT, that means the inflow is high and demand or RT is less, you would get RT minus QT as a negative value. So naturally when it becomes negative, there is no deficit. However, if your demand or release DT or RT is high and QT is less, then you would get a positive value here, which means your demand is superseding your influx of water. And when this happens, the whole value or the whole equation that you shall get will be positive. So that would mean that there is a deficit that is happening and thus that value of the deficit shall be carried forward as next KT minus 1. So, initially we start off with K0 set equal to 0, which means K0 shall be equal to 0. Thereafter, KT may be expressed conveniently as KT is equal to max 0. That means the maximum value in case it is negative shall be 0, and it shall be the KT minus 1 plus RT minus QT in case the value is turning out to be negative. When KT is 0, deficit does not exist, and thus computation for second cycle is not essential. However, if KT is positive, then values are computed for each time period for 2 successive cycles of inflow sequence. Let us assume K star to be equal to maximum KT over all T. Then K star is the required active storage capacity of the reservoir. However, total inflow and total demand should be checked for the reasons as I explained earlier. Let us do a problem taking into consideration all these things, and then probably things would get a little more clear. Prior to that, let's just revise the assumptions with which we need to proceed further. As earlier said, if the value of KT is 0 at the end of the last period of first cycle, then computation over the second cycle are not necessary. This means that the minute during computation you start getting 0, you need to ensure that the second cycle might not be necessary. This can also happen when the critical period is entirely contained in the first cycle, then the deficit that you are going to get shall be 0. And beyond a time period T for which the value of KT is exactly same as that in the first cycle for the corresponding period, then also the computations can be ceased. So, either you are getting 0 in the computations, or the values of KT are becoming repetitive in nature, then during both the times you can stop the cycle and take the maximum KT that you have obtained. This example, the inflow and demand data for 6 period sequences is given below. Compute the required capacity of a reservoir. So, you have period 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, that means you are clubbing 2 months in one period, and you have done it for, let us say, 1 year. The inflow requirements QT are 576,420 units, and the demand DT is 604725 units. Now, as I told you earlier, it is very important to check whether the total inflow value that we are having is same as total demand, because if total inflow is higher than total demand, you do not require a reservoir. If total inflow is less than total demand or equal to total demand, then only a reservoir is used over. So, here if you would add up all the total inflow values, you would get 24 units. If you add up the demand values, you would get 24. So, since both of them are equal, thus we can proceed with the reservoir sizing or the finding out the capacity of the reservoir. The table that shall be formed for the capacity finding shall be divided into time, demand, inflows, KT minus 1, and finally KT. This formula we have done earlier. So, in the time unit 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, which I have shown in the example, the demands have been written 604725 and the inflow 576420 are given over. Since at time t is equal to 1, there was no prior deficit, thus KT minus 1 shall be taken as 0 for this particular case. Now, we know KT is equal to KT minus 1 plus RT minus QT. So, the values individually shall be KT minus 1 value shall be 0, RT shall be 6 and QT shall be 5. So, 6 minus 5 is 1 that we get. Since this value is positive, it needs to be carried over to time t is equal to 2, where if you would see at time t is equal to 2, the demand is 0, the inflow is 7, Kt minus 1 is 1, which has been carried from time t is equal to 1. So, Kt in this case shall be 1 plus 0, which is Rt, minus 7, which will turn out to be minus 6. Now, since the answer is in negative, we cannot carry this forward, and we shall carry a value of 0 to time t is equal to 3. Going over to time t is equal to 3, let us see how the equation shall be solved, and then you can continue doing it later. So, at time t is equal to 3, your Kt minus 1 is 0, Rt is 4, Qt is 6. So, 0 plus 4 minus 6, again the value is coming out in negative, and thus Kt shall be 0. This whole thing you would keep doing till one particular cycle, and at the end of the first cycle and beginning of the second cycle, you will see a value of 9, which is the maximum deficit being generated. Now, since this has occurred at the beginning of the second cycle, you need to continue the computations to the second cycle also, as described earlier. However, from time t is equal to 3 in the second cycle, you would see same computations happening. That is, the values are repeating themselves. At time t is equal to 3 in the first cycle, the value is 0. At time t is equal to 4 in the first cycle, the value is 3. And at time t is equal to 5 in the first cycle, the value is 3, which has been repeated in 3, 4, 5 time in second cycle. So, herein now we can understand that since the values are being repeated over and 0 has been obtained at time t is equal to 3 in second cycle, we do not need to carry on with the computations in the second cycle. So, we can just cease the computation at this juncture, and we can find out that the reservoir capacity was the maximum value of the Kt, which was found at the beginning of the time cycle 2 at time t is equal to 1, which was 9, which has been bolded for your understanding and has been put in bolds. Maximum Kt is equal to 9 has been put in bold in the slide. Coming over to the advantages and limitations of sequent peak method. The sequent peak method does not require any optimization software, which is a great advantage, since you can methodically do it by yourselves. The limitations, however, are that inclusion of evaporation losses is not very easy in case of sequent peak analysis. So, in case you are having a lot of storage and evaporation losses, this is not the method to go in for. And simultaneously, this algorithm is not readily adapted to a system with more than one reservoir. So, if you have more than one reservoir connected, or if you want to find out, say, the reservoir in which the values are connected with each other, then this might not be the right method to go in for. Coming over to the third methodology to find out the reservoir capacity, which is linear programming. This till date is considered to be the best method for finding out the reservoir capacity. Definitely is a much better alternative and better method to sequent peak method. The assumptions of linear programming are that inflows are deterministic. In LP, the linearity assumption simplifies incorporating the evaporation loss function easily into storage continuity relationships. So, while in case of sequent peak, we were emphasizing more on the deficit part, herein we are trying to find out the storage and establishing the storage continuity for a particular deficit. So, the idea is to understand the storage capacity, while in sequent peak, the idea was to find out the maximum deficit that was being generated. Thus, in this case, evaporation loss function and storage loss function can also be accommodated, which is a big thing, because in some places this happens to be a very major component. Two sets of constraints need to be satisfied. One relates to the storage continuity and other to capacity. So, if dt is a specific demand and LT the losses due to evaporation or seepage, then RT could be withdrawal, wherein RT is equal to dt plus LT. So, what I am doing is, last time we taken RT as just demand. Now we are considering RT as something wherein the demand also has been incorporated, and say something like evaporation, seepage, storage losses also have been incorporated. So, RT I would be considering as dt plus LT. The optimization model for active storage shall be found referring to the mass balance. That means it will be subjected to mass balance, wherein for an active storage capacity Ka, you shall find storage which is St plus Qt minus Rt, which is equal to St plus 1. So, as I told you earlier, here the idea is not to find the deficit, the idea is to find out the storage. So, St plus 1 shall be equal to St plus Qt minus Rt, and the maximum active storage shall be for St less than equal to Ka, where storage should always be less than or equal to the capacity. Now, in LP, mass balance need to be maintained and storage continuity is the main problem. Thus, the idea is to derive a minimum storage value which is coherent with storage continuity. So, coming back to the equation, St plus 1, as I said, is equal to St plus Qt minus Rt, where St plus 1 is the storage at the end of the time period t plus 1, Qt is the inflow during the time period t, dt is the demand during time period t, and Lt is the losses that are taking place during the time period t. Now, since dt and Lt here have been clubbed together to give Rt, from here on we shall use Rt in the equations rather than individually talking about the demand dt or the losses Lt. Let us take the same example that we had considered for sequent peak algorithm to solve this particular linear programming model. The idea, as I told you, is to minimize K, and this is subjected to continuity equation. St minus 1 is equal to St plus Qt minus Rt. The linear programming can be written in as follows. For time t1, S1 plus 5 minus 6, since Qt was 5 there and Rt was 6. Now, in this particular problem only, we are assuming that there are no evaporation losses for ease of understanding this particular methodology. So, we are assuming there have been no evaporation losses, and thus we are considering the dt as Rt only, as we had taken in the last example. Here T2 is S2 plus 7 minus 0, which will be equal to S3. So, as you can see, continuously the way we had done for the last K value calculation, we are continuing with the storage continuity equation, and then we are repeating the same cycle with S6 plus 0 minus 5 is equal to S1 for the second cycle. Considering set of constraints St is less than equal to Ka, storage at any time period must be less or equal to K that we have obtained from optimization problem, as K is the storage capacity. So, this K value that we have obtained from the earlier solution or the earlier model, we are going to use that as the criteria, which if you would recollect in the last problem was 9. We got to understand that this St value for each of the solutions has to be less than equal to this Ka. For in this particular example, K was equal to 9, which was a solution that came from sequent peak algorithm. S1 was the one, was equal to 1. Since this happens to be an optimal solution, we start with S1 as 1 and continue getting the values of S2 is equal to 0, S3 is 7, S4 9, S5 6 and S6 as 6. For all these solutions that you have obtained, you would carefully see and satisfy the condition S is less than equal to K. So, you would see S1 value is less than 9, S2 value is less than equal to 9, S3 value is also less than equal to 9, and S4 definitely is equal to 9. As we keep on increasing the number of S and the data that we are covering in, this data gets very exhaustive and calculation of the solution becomes very difficult. Thus, large LP problems can be solved using Lingo, which is language for interactive general optimization. So, basically we have covered 3 methodologies to find out the reservoir capacity. Now, we shall come on to find out the reservoir performance criteria. It is important that performance estimation of the artificial reservoir is extremely important in order to know how well a reservoir will perform under expected supply, demand and hydrological conditions during its operational life. The aim of the method is to illustrate particular phase of the inadequate operating conditions, particularly during low flow periods. So, if you are having problem in performance of the reservoir, especially during low flow periods, that needs to be looked into, and thus reservoir performance criteria is to be adjudged. One way to do that is find out the reliability. The reliability measurement is the assessment of the consistency of the system's requirement being met. Reliability RT is the percentage of time units in which the specific demand is met and can be given as RT is equal to 1 minus NR by NT, where NR is number of periods where specified demand is not met and NT is total number of time periods under consideration. So, as you can see, the NR increases, the number of periods where specified demand is not met increases, thus the reliability will come down. Since the numerator NR would increase, 1 minus the factor that you would subtract from 1 shall increase, and thus reliability factor will come down. NR by NT can be collectively called as empirical probability of failure of demand being met. The higher this value, the higher the failure of the reservoir system. Details of other reliability measurement have been discussed in module. For the paucity of time, this happens to be the best used methodology for reliability and has thus been discussed. So, we have discussed in the lecture regarding reservoir sizing and capacity, wherein first of all we have discussed the conditions for which the reservoir is to be made. Then we have described the methodologies through which reservoir capacity shall be found out. The 3 methodologies that we have described are: 1, a ripple diagram, then sequent peak analysis, and 3rd, linear programming. Thereafter, we have concluded the lecture with reliability measurement values of the reservoir capacity.